to a new episode of Melt. I'm Ritvika Gupta, shooting from home. Starting this week, we will be showcasing some of the sessions from ZeeMELT 2021. And on the show today, we'll also discuss the new TVC by Cadbury Dairy Milk on Creative Picks. Let's begin with a talk by Mark Schaefer, Executive Director, Schaefer Marketing Solutions. Based on his best-selling book, Marketing Rebellion, Mark explains how 3 consumer rebellions have forged today's marketing landscape. Let's get ready to melt with Mark Schaefer.
I love the theme of this conference, History is Not Bunk, and I'm going to show you exactly why today. In the introduction, it was mentioned that some of the big ideas I'm going to be talking about today come from this book, Marketing Rebellion, which is really a wake-up call for marketing. The problem I see right now is that as we go, especially as we go into this next planning year of marketing strategy, so many companies are looking at their marketing as something that's iterative, meaning we do a little bit better this year than last year on our advertising, on our SEO, on our content. But meanwhile, our customers have moved a giant step away from us. They've got the accumulated knowledge of the human race in their palm of their hands. They can make really good decisions, and they have different expectations of our businesses and of marketing. Now, one of the things I've enjoyed is I teach at a big university in the New York City area called Rutgers University. I've taught there in an executive digital marketing program for more than 11 years now. And in all those years, there's only one slide I've used all that time. I've changed everything else. I call this marketing in one slide. All of us in business, all of us in marketing are trying to do this. Over time, we're creating some interaction, some provocation with our customers that leads to higher and higher levels of engagement over time. It starts with awareness. Now, this used to come through advertising. That was the only option we had, right? Before social media. Today, there are so many options to create this awareness. If we're doing a good job, maybe we'll earn consumer trust and they'll start buying something from us. And then the ultimate goal is loyalty, where people love us so much, they want to bring their friends and recommend us. Now, I've been in marketing more than 30 years, and this is what I've always believed in. And now I'm beginning to think that even this slide is wrong. In my customer research for different projects, I kept coming across quotes like this. Our research revealed that consumers are increasingly likely to have a negative reaction to a company's attempt to earn their loyalty. I'm a marketing professional. Loyalty is what I love. And you're telling me there's a backlash against loyalty? How can that be? There's clues in this research from McKinsey that said, the reason why this loyalty is deteriorating is because the emotion is missing out of marketing. We're becoming too preoccupied and obsessed with technology and other strategies that are ignoring the emotion. So, as I said, this is predictable because over time, we've actually had 3 consumer rebellions. Let me tell you about what I mean and where we are right now. Marketing and advertising started to become a major industry in America in the 1920s. By the 1940s, it was a major force in places like India. But the problem was advertising and marketing back then meant creating remarkable promises. But as the competition heated up, these remarkable promises became more and more remarkable until maybe they were lies. And the consumer said, you have to stop lying. And that's where we started to get regulation. In America, it was like in the 1930s. In India, the 60s and the 70s, there was a lot of new regulation saying you can't lie to consumers. So when companies forgot about this emotional connection and the trust of consumers, they rebelled and the consumers won. Now, I'm going to play you a sound next that indicates the beginning of the second rebellion. Do you recognize that sound? It's a dial-up internet connection. This was a very exciting time, but it was also the beginning of a new revolution in business, because all of this information that was housed in our companies, our governments, and our organizations was now moving down to the people. There were no more secrets. And that's how we used to do business. We made money on the stuff, on the information that people didn't know. That's how we sold cars. That's how we sold insurance. That's how we sold vacation plans. And today, with the advent of the internet, the second rebellion occurred, where our consumers know as much about what's going on as we do. This was the second rebellion, the end of secrets. We were ignoring and abusing our customers by keeping this information secret and taking advantage of them. Once again, the consumers rebelled and they won. Now, I want to tell you an important story, a little case study that illustrates where we are today. So this is an important lesson talking about this third consumer rebellion. And this story begins with a very, very famous product, Ivory soap. Now, Ivory is not a very popular product in India, but in America, in around the early 1900s, this was the first soap that was ever cut into bars, wrapped in a package, and advertised. It was created by the biggest advertiser in the world, a mega company called Procter & Gamble. Now, by the 1960s, because of this advertising, Ivory soap had 50% market share. The market share of Ivory soap is now less than 3%. How is that possible? Everybody still uses soap. These are this is the biggest soap brand in the world with the best marketers and the biggest budgets. Soap isn't being replaced by solar power or artificial intelligence. We still use soap. What happened? I got my answer one evening. I was over for dinner at my friend's house, and I went into their restroom, their WC, and I saw this soap from the Knoxville Soap Company. Knoxville, Tennessee is where I live. So I went out and talked to the woman who was making us dinner that night. And I said, I have a question for you. Can you come into the restroom with me? She got a strange look on her face, but she came into the restroom. I said, I'd like to know why you bought this soap. Procter & Gamble and these big companies have been advertising to you all of your life. Why do you love this brand? And she said, I don't know if I love this brand, but I love the hands that made it. And that was a very powerful marketing lesson. She went on to tell me how amazing this family was that made this soap, how good they treat their employees, how they're creating a sustainable business. They're using local products to support other businesses. They're involved in the community, teaching entrepreneurial classes. She was so enthusiastic about this soap, it made me go out and buy the soap. And then she said, you mentioned advertising. I don't know the last time I saw an ad. I watch my video on Netflix and Disney Plus. I listen to music all day long on streaming services. I never hear ads. I listen to audiobooks. I don't hear ads. I would say my advertising consumption is down 95% in the last 5 years. Now we start to see why brands built on advertising are beginning to struggle. Let's dissect this. She paid 10 times more for this bar of soap than if she would have bought Ivory. The emotional connection was not to the product. It was to a human. This is a very significant change in marketing, especially with this younger generation. They want to know, who are you? What do you do? Who works there? How do you do it? What do you stand for? Isn't it interesting? She was unreachable by traditional advertising and marketing. She was almost proud of the fact. And what we're seeing is that less and less people, especially in the younger generation, are seeing advertising. And if they see it, 80% of adults don't believe it. The traditional sales funnels are eroding. And that leads us to our final and most important point. Today, the customer is the marketer. That's where sales are happening. In this world where trust has eroded in companies, brands, and advertising for 13 years in a row, who do we trust? We trust our friends. We trust our neighbors. And this is why I conclude we're in this third rebellion. Our customers said, no more lies. They said, no more secrets. And the other one is no more control. This explains the backlash against loyalty because customers don't trust big companies and brands. They trust each other. That's where the brand building is taking place. A brand used to be what we told the consumer it is. Today, it's what the consumers tell each other.
Now let's listen into a talk by Sue Unerman, Chief Transformation Officer, MediaCom. Sue argues that in a world that appears to be rapidly changing, fundamentally for human behavior, nothing much has changed. Let's get ready to melt with Sue Unerman.
Hello, my name is Sue Unerman. I'm Chief Transformation Officer at MediaCom, the largest media planning and buying agency in the UK and top 3 in the category worldwide. And here's my point of view. There's lots of rhetoric about the speed of change. Speed of change is breathtaking. How can we keep up? However, fundamentally, nothing has changed. People are the same, and we can only produce great work if we have true human insight, both for our professional target audience, but also for each other as teammates. Now, when I joined, the internet had barely been invented and Facebook didn't exist. Hard to imagine now, right? And obviously, a huge amount has changed, and it's always continuing to change. And the pace of change is indeed breathtaking. Now, we wouldn't have been successful at MediaCom if we had not stayed ahead of those changes in the industry. And as Chief Transformation Officer, my day job is to drive that change. This is one reason for this vision, which is our vision for the agency, seeing the bigger picture. But let me also tell you our mantra. And our mantra as an agency has been and always will be people first, better results. It's been in place for over 2 decades, and we don't just say it, we live it. And for me, good business starts and ends with culture and people. It's really very simple. So let's start with people. And maybe a person who you wouldn't necessarily have expected me to put on a slide at the ZeeMELT conference. Fundamentally, people haven't changed. Here's a woman of some privilege consuming media in medieval times. Now, the amount of new news that she would have heard about in a year is roughly equivalent to the amount of new stuff you would encounter in an hour of scrolling through social media feeds, or perhaps reading 1 week's issue of The Economist. And here's one internet minute from 2019, busy, right? The truth is, though, that the human brain, of course, is not designed to take all of this in. In fact, it's entirely possible that the amount of information that our friend on the previous slide absorbed in a year, in a medieval year, is about all our minds can take. The rest of it just washes over us. And we know this is true of advertising, right? You're all bombarded with it. But if I ask you what ads you remember seeing in the last 24 hours or hearing, what would you say? You know, you've seen them, heard them, but which do you remember? Speaking personally, I can't think of more than 1 or 2 that have stood out for me. And I'm in the business of helping all our clients to cut through this clutter. And obviously, it will be my clients' ads that will be the ones that you will remember. Now, remember the rider and the elephant, this idea of actually how human beings are made up. The idea was first developed, and it wasn't an elephant, it was first developed by Plato, who thought of a lot of good ideas, one of the ancient Greeks, who said that in our heads we have a rational charioteer who has to rein in an unruly horse. And the idea was then made famous. That's our emotions. But the idea was then made famous by Chip and Dan Heath, talking about change. Daniel Kahneman in System 1 and System 2 thinking that you may be familiar of. So Jonathan Haidt also talking about happiness. And so we know we have an elephant, System 1, or instinctive thinking and emotions, and the rider in our heads, System 2, rationality. And according to Kahneman, we think that rationality is in charge, but this is a self-delusion because we really haven't changed that much. We haven't changed as human beings, and our biological design for survival is about System 1 thinking and is more important to us than our rationality. So it's super important as planners to remember this. In fact, at MediaCom, we often come back to the 15 basic human drives as defined by a study by the University of Ohio. These are the things that truly motivate us, and they haven't really changed. So family, social acceptance, honor, some old-fashioned words, social contact, avoiding distress, independence, order, hunger, emotional and physical, vengeance, power, physicality, curiosity, sex. Or, as Maslow put it, here's the basic human needs, with a specific new one that has loomed large in lockdown, Wi-Fi. So things haven't changed. To communicate well, to cut through, you really need to understand this. Now, we have a technique that we use at MediaCom for this. We call it Method Insight. We ask every planner at MediaCom to live the experience of the business that they work on. This might mean going on a shopping expedition with the target market. It might mean delivering, as some of my colleagues have done, delivering groceries for Tesco's, working in their stores at Christmas. For our client, which is a sofa shop, DFS, I've delivered sofas. I wasn't allowed to carry much, but I went along the delivery and I met the people and saw how excited and surprised they were by the sofa when it got delivered. I spent hours in the factories talking to the people that cut the patterns, talking to the designers and with the sales teams in the shops. And from this comes insight that leads to great work. Because really being open to other people's lived experiences, not just seeing them from an ad agency bubble, allows you to have real empathy and not just sympathy with the brand and the buyers. So what's the difference between sympathy and empathy? Because sympathy is good, right? Sympathy is caring about somebody without really understanding them. Empathy means that you really get them. But you need both. Empathy without sympathy is Hannibal Lecter. He gets his victims, he knows exactly how they're feeling, but he doesn't care. So you need empathy and sympathy as a planner. So sympathy and empathy are not only what you need for your craft as a planner, it's also what everyone needs in order to create and build a culture of belonging, where everyone is free to bring their real selves to work, where everyone feels welcomed, respected, and wanted, and everyone can fulfill their potential. Now, Belonging is my best-selling book on the topic with my co-authors, Catherine Jacob and Mark Edwards. And in it, it's got lots of evidence, lots of research, case studies, and exercises for change. So in our book, we talk about resetting the business world for the 21st century. Now, I think going back into the offices, as we're starting to do now after time at home, gives us a real opportunity to say, let's have a reset, let's have a reimagine, let's just not go back to things. And we've created a belonging manifesto, a business world for the 21st century, where everyone should feel safe to bring their real selves to work, where everyone feels that they belong in their workplace, where everyone knows that the success at their organization is about how they can contribute, not on who they are or what their ethnicity or other forms of underrepresented behavior is. It's what you can contribute, and where everyone feels safe enough to challenge and to express opinions. So a big question for me is that we should all be asking ourselves is how can we practice empathy every day as well as sympathy? And how will we champion belonging today? Showing empathy and sympathy in your work and at your workplace.
It's now time to move to this week's creative picks. In the early 90s, Cadbury Dairy Milk launched an iconic commercial featuring a long-haired girl dancing on a cricket ground unabashedly after her friend scores the winning run. Titled Asli Swad Zindagi Ka, the ad spoke of a carefree spirit and highlighted the simple joys in life. The campaign not only left an imprint on viewers but also expanded Cadbury's target audience and changed the perception that chocolates were only meant for children. This week, Cadbury released a new ad with a similar context and setting. The only difference here is that roles have reversed. Now we see a girl playing cricket on the ground while her male friend breaks into a dance after she wins. The ad ends by wishing good luck to women cricketers and comes just before the upcoming Indian women's cricket team's tour of Australia. Anil Viswanathan, Senior Director Marketing at Mondelez India Foods, and Kainaz Karmakar, Chief Creative Officer, Ogilvy India, will tell us more about the campaign and the idea behind it. But first, let's have a look at the TVC.
कुछ खास है हम सभी में, कुछ बात है हम सभी में, बात है खास है, कुछ स्वाद है, क्या स्वाद है जिंदगी में।
Cadbury's Dairy Milk.
I think over the years, we built a very strong ecosystem of brand owners between ourselves and our agency partners. So when the idea came from a very young creative in the Ogilvy team, I think, of course, we tossed it around. We had, of course, debated a lot, but we felt that the contextual importance of this new expression is quite important. I think this is the theme which is highly topical, relevant, and picking up a lot of steam, especially in the context of sport, where we think that representation should be more equal, remuneration should be more equal, and all these themes are becoming more and more important. So we felt that this role reversal was very topical. That gave us the belief that we must go behind it. I think I'd be lying to say that I don't enter this territory with a bit of trepidation, but we are confident that the audience will also resonate with this new expression.
It's honestly taken a village to raise this film. And I'm here on behalf of all of them, starting with my partners, Sukesh and Harshad, and the girls who thought of it, which is Swagata, Samyu, and Tanuja. So having said that, I'll tell you how we presented it. We presented it in one line. We told the client, remember your favorite film? Said, yes. Okay. Now imagine it upside down. Imagine a girl batting and a guy jumping onto the field and dancing. So even before we presented the whole script, this is all we told the client. And his reaction was, wow. It was totally from the heart. It was instinct. And the best part is it didn't need convincing. This is the sign of the times we live in. It is not just about cricket. It is more than that. This is where women are going in the world.
And that's a wrap on this episode of Melt. You can follow us on social media. Our handle is Ready to Melt. And stay updated with all that's buzzing in the world of advertising and marketing with our daily Melt update on our website, readytomelt.com. I shall see you next week, same time, same place. Goodbye.